Thank you for having me here today. I have some slides. I'll see if I can bring those up, but I'm sure you'd rather me talk about Donald Trump, but I'm not here to talk about Donald Trump today. I'm here to talk about the sharing economy and whether the sharing economy is a problem to be managed or it's an opportunity to be seized. And I think that what's amazing when you look back this question, the sharing economy, 5 years ago, the sharing economy was just a twinkle in our eye. So this is just with Uber. Uber in 2010, 5 years ago, one city, that blue dot way to the left of the screen, San Francisco. 5 years later, Uber's now operating in over 64 countries and over 350 cities. So this is just one example. Most of the sharing economy and on-demand based apps out there weren't even in existence 5 years ago. And when we think about Uber, and I can only talk about that app authoritatively, a lot of words come to mind. Some people may think app, car, taxi, technology, disruptive, aggressive, maybe even some more colorful words. But as we think about these apps, these platforms like Uber, I think sometimes what's missed is the potential benefits that lie on the other side. And again, I can't speak about other companies authoritatively, but I thought I would give you a little glimpse under the hood about what we see with our data with Uber. So first of all, this is Manila. And this is the case in most global cities. Okay? Our cities look like parking lots, and they move like traffic jams. And all of you in business and government know over the next 10 years, we are going to have an unprecedented pace of urban migration. People are moving into cities at historic rates. That's not going to change. Some cities have the ability to add new public transportation lines, new roads. Most don't. So you already have too much congestion. You have more people coming in. So something has to give. And what we believe could be part of the answer here is carpooling. Now, we have been talking about carpooling as a nation and as a world since 1973, the first OPEC oil crisis. We said part of the way we're going to deal with congestion, with emissions, 20% of the damage that's done to our planet is through the emissions of cars. So carpooling has never worked. There's casual carpools in some places that worked, but never on scale. So this is what we're exciting about. So the core Uber proposition, which is I press a button and I get a ride from my fellow citizen. The idea now is we put 2 or 3 people in the car, using technology, making it efficient, making it affordable. We will eventually bring that product to Manila, but it's on the road in several Chinese cities. It's on the road in Paris. It's on the road in major US cities. And 50% of the people that use Uber in San Francisco, 50% of them do not choose an Uber Black car or an Uber X car. They choose to carpool. 30% of the people in Los Angeles, 700,000 people in Los Angeles alone have tried carpooling. So we're excited about this. So when you think about the sharing economy, it's not just how does a company like ours or others exist with the incumbent industry. The truth is, just from Uber's standpoint, we're not very much interested in talking about the taxi market. This is about much bigger. Can we change behavior so that more people are using for-hire vehicle transportation? So in the United States of America, where we're most mature, and again, many other companies have data, but I can only speak about ours, 10% of the people under 30 in this short time have given up their car. They've changed the way that they live their life. And that is the big value proposition. We need to reduce personal car usage, and we also need to bring down car ownership. And what's fascinating to me is my generation, I spent years saving enough money to buy a car. Right? My entire social life, I'm sure it was for many of you, existed around the car. Young people today, their social life is on our smartphones. They want to live in cities. They want to live in many cities. They want to travel the world. They do not want to own things to the extent my generation did. So a platform like ours very much matches up nicely with this behavioral change that we're seeing. Now, this is another benefit. Look at this. So these spikes are when bars close and when Uber trips spike. Now, you could say, I'm sure the same for our competitor in this region, Grab Taxi, our competitor Didi in China. But this is a big value proposition. Drunk driving is something where we lose too many people. Somebody dies from a drunk driving accident every 50 minutes, and it over-indexes with young people. This is another place where we're seeing behavior change. In our research, people under 25 or 30, if they live in an urban area where a service like Uber or one of our competitors is available, they don't even think about driving if they're going to have anything to drink. It doesn't even cross their mind anymore because they can press a button and get home safely. Now, the thing I really want to talk about today is the sharing economy a problem to be managed or an opportunity to be seized? Well, the other debate is, how does the sharing economy, and you heard this on a previous panel to some extent, how does technology in the sharing economy fit in with the future of work? Some people suggest that we're going to turn into a world of freelancers. Other people suggest that this is a small trend. But this is the United States. But this is true all over the world. So I remember I ran President Obama's campaign. When he took the oath of office, the unemployment rate was at 10% in the United States. We were almost in a Great Depression. Now, the unemployment rate in the US has dropped to 5%. Great news. But actually, workers don't feel that much better than they did during the recession. Why? Because their hourly earnings have not increased and median household income has declined. So while the unemployment rate is down, we see those power flex. Now, I think what sometimes is not properly appreciated about services like ours is how large they're getting. The marketplace is getting bigger than anybody anticipated. And when Uber started 5 years ago, our founders just wanted to make it easy for their friends in San Francisco to get around. Okay, there was no grand ambition here. And even 2 years ago, you couldn't understand how big the marketplace was going to be. But there's this many people that want to ride and this many people that want to drive them. So look at where we are today, and we are still a young company, still in our infancy, and we have over 1 million active drivers. Over 80% of them come from APEC economies. Why do they drive on the platform? It's fascinating. 87% do because they want to be their own boss. 73% would rather have a job where they control the schedule than a 9-to-5 job. 65% of our drivers around the world vary the hours they drive by more than 25%. So this is what's powerful about platforms like Uber and other companies, is that control of the engagement. I decide when to engage. Probably no one in the world's consumed more political research, at least in the United States, over the last 10 years than me. And when you talk to people about their lives, and the best political research, like the best business research, is not about politics or business. It's about learning how people are living their lives, their aspirations, their concerns. And what are the two constants when you talk to people about their lives? They don't have enough time, and they don't have enough money. Those two things are closely connected. So many people around the world say they'd like more income, but they can't because schedules are inflexible. Whether that's because they are in school, they're trying to upgrade their skills, they are taking care of children, or increasingly they're aging parents. So the inflexibility of additional work opportunities has largely kept people confined. They've been stuck at a certain family income. And so when you look at why people use Uber, and again, I'm sure the other platforms have similar data, 91% is to drive to earn a little more income. 61%. So we're now at the point where worldwide, more than half of Uber drivers drive less than 10 hours a week. And we love drivers to stay with us from now till the end of eternity. But one of the values of a platform like ours is, it's not just they control the hours they work, it's how long they do this. So many of our drivers say, I'm going to do this for 3 months or 6 months or a year. I'm going to do it for the period of time that works for us. And I think that's sometimes what's missed with discussions about platforms like ours. Whether it's the housing industry, the service industry, the transportation sector, is there's a sense that, well, what we're doing is sort of it's a digital taxi service, right? That's not how people are using the platform. They decide to drive an hour or two today, 4 hours tomorrow. Maybe they won't drive again for a week. And they're not only driving for a certain amount of money per week or month. You would think that's how a lot of drivers use it. Many, though, drive more momentarily. They have an unexpected bill. They want to go on vacation. Their child's going to school and they want to buy them a laptop. This is how they use the platform. And the power of that, there's nothing like it in our economy. Soon there'll be many things like it in our economy, where you say, I need some money, and this is how I'm going to earn it. I don't have to go into debt. I don't have to borrow from anybody. I'm just going to drive or rent my home, whatever the case may be, and then I will be done. And I will come back to the platform when I no longer need it. So the other powerful effect here is underserved areas. As I mentioned, we're not terribly interested in a discussion about the taxi market. This isn't about the taxi market. Our growth comes from people not choosing not to use taxis. Our growth comes from people who were driving themselves. So this is a US example, but I want to show it to you. Most of you have probably been to New York. Manhattan is on the left. That is where 95% of taxi trips take place. It makes sense. Financial district, high density. When I'm in New York, I'm as likely to take a taxi as I am an Uber because it's easier to come out of a building and put up your hand. We don't do street hails, for instance. The purple, though, is all the rest of New York. Transportation deserts, where it was impossible to get a taxi, far away from public transportation lines. So you over-index on people being forced into car ownership, which is bad for the environment, it's bad for congestion. Also, people, it's such a burden. We only use our cars 4% of the time. 96% of the time we're parked. 15% of our city's land is parking lots and parking garages. What's amazing about that is so many of them after 5 or 6 o'clock at night are empty. On the weekends, they're empty. So if we can change behavior around car ownership, usage, having people share vehicles, we can reclaim some land from cities. So this is just a chart on the part-time. So it shows you China, which is a place where we're doing very well and we have a strong competitor there, almost 70% of our drivers driving less than 10 hours a week. Malaysia, 65. The United States, we're right at 50. Here in APEC, 47. So when you think about the sharing economy in platforms like ours, I think a lot of the debate is incumbent industry, traditional sense of for-hire vehicle transportation in our case, and how those two things work together. But what I think is often lost is how people are using these platforms. And so we have tens of millions of people around the world who say, I'd like a different way to get around my city, either entirely or just every once in a while. And you've got millions of people who want to earn money, doing something, in our case, almost all of us can do. We can all drive. And because of outdated rules in many cases that predated GPS technology and smartphones and cellular, there was a barrier to entry on something we all can do. So as we think about these platforms, I would just leave you with that question. And here in the Philippines, we're so happy to be here today. So this is our general manager, Lawrence, in the sport coat, there with the transportation secretary, Secretary Obaya. So the Philippines was the first country in the world, the first country to pass new regulations to enable something like ride sharing. And they deserve an enormous amount of credit for that. And the way they did it is they broadened out their viewpoint and said, we have too much congestion, back to the picture of the Manila traffic. We need more people to make more money. And we'd like to make progress on things like drunk driving and transportation for people with like disabilities. So I think on this question of apps like Uber, Airbnb, TaskRabbit, there seems to be a new one every day. I would just humbly suggest we have to broaden out the aperture a little bit. And so many of these macroeconomic, environmental, and transportation challenges, in our case, our app can help solve some of them. Our competitors can as well. But I think if you look at every sector, there's no doubt more change is going to come. One thing I like to do is go through life on any given day and keep a mental checklist of the things that are too hard, harder than they should be. And you come up with a very, very long list. And you can be darn sure that someone's working on trying to fix that. Right? Now, there's some things that can't be on demand. You've got a serious health issue, you need to engage in the medical system in a serious way. But the way we bank, the way we get information, the way we interact with the healthcare system, the way we move around our city, all of that is going to change. And while I think there's a very valid question around the future of work, what is the world going to look like 30 years from now if there is more automation? What is the world going to look like as we have artificial intelligence and robotics becoming more part of every industry? But the fact of the matter is we see people using, at the core, what Uber is technology. It's an application. And what's interesting about this is technology just doesn't have to be something up in the clouds. that is selling advertising and that's monetizing. You see this really interesting thing with Uber, and there's other apps like it, where the technology is actually enabling the grittiest things we've always had in our cities, economic activity at the street level. And so our goal is, now, we are not a nonprofit, we're a business. I'm sure all the other apps would say the same thing, okay? But what we see is the ability to help a whole lot of people who've been stuck at an income level for a long time, people who've been denied transportation. There's inequality in transportation all over the world. And now what you're beginning to see is no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, no matter where you live, you can press a button and get the same transportation that people in the wealthiest, best served of the neighborhood are. And so I think what you're going to see with technology like this, a lot of questions, valid questions. We have to change regulations and laws in some cases. But I think what you're going to see is the technology story is not just one of fear and negativity. There's technology that's happening right today that's enabling economic opportunity on scale, empowerment on scale, and we want to continue with work all of you to get your good ideas about how we can do it even better. So thank you for your time today.